There we go. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those who don't know, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. This month is particularly exciting for us. On February 11th, it was the International Day for Women in Science. And instead of doing a blitz of hangouts on that one day, we had another class join us. Instead of doing a blitz of hangouts on that one day, we are doing an entire month celebrating amazing women in science and exploration. We've had, I think, over 20 hangouts already. We've got tons more to go. It's been an extraordinary month, and so thank you guys so much for joining us. Right now, we are joined by all 6 classes from across the states, so I'm going to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout-out. We've got Miss Webbs, grade 7/8 from Penn Laird in Virginia. Hi, guys. We've got Miss Padilla's grade 4s from Montclair, California. Setting the bar very high in the screaming quotient. We've got Miss Williams, grade 3s through 5s in San Antonio, Texas. If we can get the mic working, they're there. We'll get the excitement later. We've got Miss Tompkins, grade 4/5s from Anaheim in California. One kid was super high pitched there. I love it. And then 2 classes, you'll have to deem your own mics, but we've got Miss Pollux, grade 4s in Manassas, Virginia. Yay! Awesome. And then last but not least, we've got Mrs. Eagles, grade 5s from San Antonio in Texas. And again, you guys have to demute your own mics as well, but you're there. Everyone's there. Everyone's excited. All right. Of course, the reason you guys are all joining us today is not for me. It's for our amazing speaker, Emily Calandrelli, MIT engineer, international science communicator, host on Xploration Outer Space, correspondent on Bill Nye Saves the World, author of children's science books. I mean, just like does it all. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Emily. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. Wow, what an enthusiastic introduction. I love it. Thank you. So my name is Emily Calandrelli. I have an educational background in engineering. So I went to college for aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering. I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do, so I studied both of those things. And then when I graduated from college, I was looking for a job in science, and I got a call from a production studio that was like, would you like to be the host of a science TV show about space? And I thought that that sounded like the coolest adventure ever. And so I said yes. And so today I am the science TV show host of a show called Xploration Outer Space on Fox. It's a Saturday morning show. Raise your hand. Has anyone actually seen this show on the weekend? I know some people in like middle school generally watch in their classrooms. Okay, yes, I see some hands. So as the host of this show, and some of you have seen this already, I get to travel all around the country and sometimes to different countries to cover the coolest things that are happening in space exploration. So in my show, I talk about rockets and spacecraft and rovers on Mars and aliens and black holes and everything in between. And it's such a fun job because I get to meet some of the smartest people in the world who are doing the most ambitious things in the world. And so I've gotten to do a lot of different things. I've gone to space camp. Last year I was in Hawaii. I went to the top of a volcano to look at really cool telescopes that they put on top of these volcanoes to get above a lot of the atmosphere so they can better see the stars. I went to Alaska to see the Northern Lights. I've flown in like aerobatic planes with famous pilots. I've done some really, really fun stuff. But I want to talk to you about a few of the more fun things I've gotten to do. So as much as I love aliens and space, my true love is in a childhood book that I really, 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 really loved when I was little. And that book is Harry Potter. And one time last year, I got to go to Harry Potter World with an astronaut, which was one of my most favorite TV episodes we've done in the 5 years that I've been doing this. And we did this because the astronaut wanted to show me how riding on different roller coasters can give you the same feeling on your body as launching into space. So we get to Harry Potter World and we get there before anybody is there. We get there before the park opens and the sun hasn't even risen yet. So it's completely dark out. There's just the 2 of us and a camera crew. And we get to ride all of the roller coaster rides in Harry Potter world, just the two of us, with this really cool astronaut who's telling me how riding a roller coaster kind of feels like going into space. It was so much fun, and that's like a memory I'll never forget. And then last year after that, I got to do something even more exciting. And I got to ride something called the Vomit Comet. Has anyone here, raise your hand if you've heard of the Vomit Comet? Anyone here? Okay, there are some hands. So this will be the coolest thing you ever learn about. The Vomit Comet, in my mind, is the coolest thing I've ever done in my whole life, and I'm so excited to tell you about it. So what it is the Vomit Comet is a plane that flies like a roller coaster. So it's a plane that's like basically an 8,000-foot roller coaster in the sky. And so it flies like this. And when the plane goes up and over like that, kind of like if you're riding a roller coaster and you've ever gone over like a big bump in a roller coaster, or if you've gone down like a really steep part of a roller coaster and your butt lifts off your seat. Has that ever happened to you guys? Have you felt that feeling? Yeah, and you kind of like lose your stomach and you get butterflies in your stomach. That's what the Vomit Comet makes you feel like. When you go over in the airplane like this, you start floating like an astronaut. So you float for 30 seconds. And then just like a roller coaster, the roller coaster has to go back up like this. And when you're going up a steep hill in a roller coaster, you get kind of pushed back in your seat, right? Well, just like on a roller coaster in the plane, you get forced down to the bottom and you feel really heavy. And so the plane goes like this, you feel really heavy, and then you feel weightless, and heavy and weightless, and heavy and weightless, and heavy and weightless for an hour and a half. So the plane goes for an hour and a half like this, which is why they call it the Vomit Comet, right? Because if you rode a roller coaster that intense for an hour and a half, you might throw up. Now, the dangerous part about that is what happens to that throw up if you're weightless. Where does it go? It goes everywhere, right? And so the very important thing that you bring on this, every single time anybody flies on the Vomit Comet, they bring one very important thing. And that thing is a barf bag. You have to wear these flight suits, and in those flight suits, you have a pocket right here, and everybody checks. As soon as you board the plane, you have to have your barf bag right there. Because if you're going to get sick, you don't want it to get over everybody else, because everything works differently in microgravity. That's just another word for very small gravity. Everything works differently when you're weightless. Everything from throw up to water to fire. If you've ever looked up astronauts on the International Space Station, they do everything differently. From washing their hair to eating food, they'll just throw up animal crackers in the air and go fly and eat them in the air. It's so cool. It's wild how everything is different in the Vomit Comet. And when I flew on it for my show, I was just playing around. My friends and I, we would hold up hula hoops in the air and we'd try to fly through them mid-air. We were just having a whole lot of fun. But scientists can use the Vomit Comet for experiments because everything works differently in microgravity, right? So water works differently. You can squirt water in front of you and it's just going to stay there. So you may have seen astronauts on the space station squirting water in front of them and like grabbing it with their mouths in midair. It's so cool. But everything works differently, like including fire. I'm trying to see if I have a lighter around here. Usually I have, well, let's see if I don't burn my house down. So flames in regular gravity, you've probably seen them on Earth if you've lit a candle before or something like that. Let's see. Come on, buddy. Woo! Okay. So if you can see, the flame goes up and it makes what kind of shape? It makes like a teardrop shape, right? And that's because the only reason it does that is because we have gravity. And gravity makes hot air rise. Hot air rises because when air gets hot, it becomes lighter than regular air. It weighs less than regular air. So that hot air rises and it creates a teardrop shape. So that's why anytime if you've seen a flame, the flame makes that little teardrop shape like that, kind of it gets longer like that way. But in space, fire works completely differently. If giving you some homework on next time you're on the internet, Google fire in space, a flame in space, because it just looks so bizarre. It looks like a ball of fire because when you don't have gravity to push it up to make it longer, the flames go in all different directions. So it just looks like a ball of fire. It's really, really cool. So while we were flying in the Vomit Comet to have fun, scientists use the Vomit Comet as a laboratory. And when you're working in space like the astronauts do, weightlessness comes with a new set of challenges to kind of live your everyday life like you would if you're here on Earth. And one of those big challenges is that astronauts have to work out 2 hours a day, every single day when they're in space. And they have to do that because while weightlessness seems like a lot of fun and you're just floating around, it can actually be kind of dangerous if you're weightless for a really long time. It can make your muscles get weaker. It can make your bones get weaker. And the only way to try to make that not happen is if you exercise for 2 hours a day, every single day. But imagine trying to figure out how to exercise in weightlessness. What are the challenges that you might have? Because if you want to lift a heavy weight in weightlessness, that weight doesn't weigh anything, right? If you see these people in the gym lifting these heavy weights, you try to do that in space and on the International Space Station, you could be the heaviest, you could be the strongest person on Earth as long as you were in space. You could lift the heaviest thing because it doesn't weigh anything. You would look so strong. But that becomes a problem for astronauts because they need to find a way to work out. Now, to kind of put this in perspective, raise your hand if any of you play a sport. You guys play any sports? Do any of you play, let's see, like basketball or soccer? Okay, maybe football or gymnastics. Yeah, okay, I see lots of different hands. So now I want you to imagine, what if you had to play that sport when you were weightless? How would that sport change, right? You would, for example, let's see, if you had a sport with a ball, like basketball or soccer, that ball, as soon as you kicked it up in the air, it would just keep going and going and going and would be gone forever. So you'd have to put maybe like a net over the court or over the field, right? Or maybe the basketball hoops would have to be even higher because you could just throw it so high, but the ball would never come down. So you'd have to figure out a different way to play all of your different sports. These are the types of challenges that engineers who design equipment on the space station have to think about. These really cool different engineering challenges. And one of the challenges that they had to consider is how astronauts would work out on the space station. So what did they do? How did they solve this problem? Well, consider most of the sports that you guys play, you have to run, right? A lot of those sports include running. But if you're running in weightlessness, what would happen, right? Look at my feet as I leave the ground. Look at my legs. With every step I take, the very first step, I would bounce my head off the ceiling, right? I would just keep going. Anytime you would run, you would just, with your first step, you would go up and hit your head on the ceiling, and you would never be able to actually run like a normal person here on Earth. So the way that engineers on the space station solve this problem is by making a very specialized treadmill for astronauts. So the way they did it, it looks like basically a regular treadmill, but one thing is different. They put what looks like rubber bands on the shoulders of the astronauts that want to run on the treadmill. And so every single time they run, when they do that first lift, like when I was running on the chair, when I did my first lift, that rubber band stretches. And what happens when you let go of a rubber band after you stretch it? It goes back to its shape, right? It wants to collapse and get to that same size that it was originally. So the same thing happens with these astronauts. They stretch out the rubber band, and the rubber band wants to go back to its original shape, so it pushes the astronauts back down. And that happens every single time they run. It stretches, brings them back down, stretches, brings them back down. And so they're kind of creating fake gravity by doing this. They took a big challenge, working out in weightlessness, and came up with a really creative solution. So if you wanted to work in the aerospace industry as an engineer, you would get to think of these solutions. You'd be able to take this challenge of working and living and operating in space on the International Space Station and think of really unique, clever solutions. So it's a very fun industry to work in. One of the other things that I think really, really intrigues me about space is aliens. I love, love, love thinking about aliens, and I love that scientists who search for aliens. Raise your hand if you think that aliens might live out in the universe. There's a lot of you. I think so too, because there are billions and billions of stars out there, most of which we think we have that have planets around them, just like our star, the sun, has 8 planets around it. They think all the other stars that you see in the sky, when you look up at the sky, all of those little dots of light are stars. And they think, scientists believe that there's at least one planet for every star you see in the sky. That's so many planets and so many chances that aliens could be out there. But how do we search for aliens, right? Because aliens are pretty hard to find. It's really hard to have a good enough camera to actually zoom in on all those planets. We simply don't have good enough cameras, right? If you were trying to take a picture of your friend who is maybe a mile away from you, the picture of your friend would be really, really blurry. If you try to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and try to see that image of your friend, it would be really blurry and you may not be able to even tell that it was your friend. That's the exact same problem that astronomers have in space when they're trying to look for aliens in space, because our cameras simply aren't good enough to zoom in on all the planets that exist in the universe. So we have to try to think of it a different way. How else could we figure out if there were aliens out there? Well, one of the ways we answer that question is, well, if there were aliens looking at us, looking at Earth, how would they know that there were humans here on Earth? What other signs are we giving out to the universe that, hey, there's humans here, there's intelligent life here? Well, one of the ways that we found that we're doing that is with our technologies. A lot of our technologies use radio waves, these invisible waves of light that go out into the universe, that when we communicate with satellites, with our TVs, with our cell phones, they communicate using radio waves that don't just stop at the atmosphere and don't leave our Earth. They actually, a lot of them go through our atmosphere, leave the Earth, and go spiraling out in the universe at the speed of light, waiting for anyone who might be listening. So ever since we've had advanced technology, we've been sending out red flags to the universe saying, we have intelligent life on our planet. So if anybody was listening to planet Earth, they would know that there's intelligent life here. And now that's exactly the same way that we're searching for intelligent life in the universe. We have these big bowls, these big radio dishes, these radio telescopes. They're called radio telescopes, although they basically just look like big bowls. Big bowls that are listening. They're like our ear on the universe, that are listening for radio waves in different parts of the universe. And the universe is so, so big, so it's going to take us a long time to listen to every single part of the universe. And we haven't found anything yet, but we're listening. We're listening for these intelligent beings that might be out there. And I don't know about you, but I think that the universe is so, so big that it would be really weird if we were the only intelligent life in the entire universe. So I believe they're out there, and I hope that we find them in our lifetime. I think it'd be really fun to find aliens in your guys' lifetime. Okay, now the other thing I want to talk to you guys about is a couple of my other jobs, and then I'll open it up for questions. But just really briefly, the other 2 jobs that I have are, one, I work with a guy named Bill Nye. Do you guys know who Bill Nye is? Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill. So he's my boss for this new show on Netflix called Bill Nye Saves the World. It's his new big show, and it's really, really awesome. and I get to be what is called a field correspondent for him. And that just means that I get to go in the field, basically away from the studio. I get to go out to different parts of the world and find the most interesting science stories for Bill. So I've covered the science of sleeping, I've covered space exploration, I've covered things like vaccinations and education and all of these really, really cool things across the world. Last year, he sent me to India to learn about space exploration in India. So I've gotten to have a lot of really, really cool adventures with that show. And then my most recent job is as an author of a book called the Ada Lace series. So Ada Lace, you can see her here. Ada is a third grader who loves science and technology and builds her own robots and gadgets to solve mysteries in her life. And it's a really fun series. Right now, there's 2 books out, but we've written 5. And so over the next year or so, all 5 books will come out, and you'll get to learn all about Ada's adventures with her friends and her robots and technology. But with that, I am happy to open it up to any questions that you guys may have.
Awesome. That was outstanding, Emily. And the only person we've ever had who had a fire prop, also with matches, which are very 80s of you, and a running diorama in the middle. So I appreciate that immensely.
Very active.
All right. Let's go to Miss Webb's class.
Somebody has a question?
Or she should have a question.
Oh, another question? Somebody.
You can always come back if you don't have one right now.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll be back. Miss Padilla's class, you guys have a question?
We don't know that there's something called I can't hear. We're unmuted. No.
Yeah, you guys have a question in the class?
Yeah.
Someone come on up to the camera.
Don't be shy.
Michael? Yeah. Wait, do I come on? Yeah, come on.
Here he comes.
Have you ever built like something huge?
Have I ever built something huge? Myself? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, let's see. Well, when I was in college, when I was a student, I built an experiment to fly on the Vomit Comet. So I think one of the coolest things about studying science and engineering is you get to do a lot of fun things for free. I didn't have a lot of money as a student, and I couldn't afford to do cool things by myself. But NASA was willing to pay me or pay for my ticket to fly on the Vomit Comet for free as long as I built an experiment. And so my friends and I got together. It wasn't just me. I worked with like 5 or 6 friends, and we built a really big experiment to test how water acted differently in weightlessness. So we basically built like a really big sink. It was just like a really big sink, and we were testing how the water ran differently in weightlessness. So that's probably one of the cooler things that I got to build with my friends, and I got to ride on the Vomit Comet for free because I did it.
Cool.
Good question.
All right, Miss Williams' class, if you guys have a question, let's just figure out the mic. It's being a little weird with your class. See, Emily, the technology isn't perfect.
I know.
We're almost there. I know. So Miss Williams' class, if you guys want to come up, there's a little, just click the mic symbol top of your screen and you'll be good to go.
Oh, that's so nice.
There we go. I think you're good, maybe. Maybe. Wants to be good. Really does.
Do you
There we go. Good.
How old were you when you got into science?
Oh, how old was I when I got into science? That's a really good question. Because I think when I was younger, I didn't consider myself one of the smart kids. I knew a group of smart kids at my high school and middle school, and I wasn't one of them. And so it took me a little bit longer to get excited about science and engineering. But I really liked math. Math was something that I really enjoyed. I wasn't really good at science when I was little. I've gotten better at it now that I've gotten older, but it took a lot of hard work. And it took me a little while to realize that if I worked hard enough, I could make myself smarter and I could make myself become one of the smart kids. So just because if you may not like math or science now, you can teach yourself to get better at it. And we all like things that we're good at, right? So if you take a little bit of time to get better at something, you'll just automatically start enjoying it a little bit more as well. So I started really liking science when I was in college, but I liked math when I was in high school. When I was little, I wanted to be an artist. When I was in like grade school and middle school, I wanted to be an artist. So I think it's fun to just be open to lots of different ideas and lots of different careers and just work hard at everything. And eventually you'll find what you're really passionate about.
Excellent. And for the classes, one of the best ways to learn about and get interested in science is to read great books like the A to Lace series.
That's right.
Yes. All right, let's go to Miss Tompkins' class. Go right ahead, guys.
My name is Josephine, and my question for you is, have you ever been to space yourself?
Oh, have I ever been to space myself? I wish. I have not yet. Not yet. But my goal is to go to space one day. And that reality, I think, is becoming more and more, the reality is getting closer and closer, because there's a company called Virgin Galactic. I don't know if you've heard of this company, but this is the company that's going to make Justin Bieber an astronaut. So basically, they're a company that's like space tourism, and you can buy a ticket on their space plane. It's very expensive right now. It's $250,000. And so the only people that have bought tickets into space are very, very rich people, including Justin Bieber. So people, there's been like 800 people that have bought tickets into space. Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Ashton Kutcher, all of these famous people have bought tickets into space. And in the next 5 to 10 years, they will all be astronauts once this company starts flying. So it's really, really cool. I think that in the next, like when you guys get older, there will be many different ways that people can get into space. Because right now, the only way to get into space is to become an astronaut. And there's not that many astronauts. It's really, really competitive and really, really hard to do. But maybe in the future, there'll be like space hotels, there'll be colonies on the moon, there'll be companies that, like Virgin Galactic, that you can pay to go into space for like a vacation or something. So I think that there's going to be a lot of fun ways to go to space in the future, and I hope to be one of those people.
I'm sure you will be. Or you could be a mannequin in a Tesla Roadster. That's also a way to get.
Ooh, that sounds very dangerous.
All right, let's go to Miss Pollock's class. And can I just say, while you guys are demuting your mic, you guys are the best at putting your hands up ever. Like, it's so enthusiastic every time.
We work on it every day.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it fun being a girl scientist?
Did you hear her?
Yes, I did. Is it fun being a girl scientist? Yes, I do think that like it's really, really fun because first of all, when I was in college, there weren't that many girls in my class. It was mostly boys. And that can be a little bit weird at first, right? If you're like the only girl in the class and it's all mostly boys, that can be a little weird at first. But the cool thing is because there are a smaller number of women, you get to become really, really good friends with those other girls, with those other women. So imagine having just like the coolest, most exclusive girls club in the world. And I have so many female friends now that are also scientists and engineers and that studied science and engineering. And they're just like the coolest, most interesting, best friends any girl could ever ask for. So it comes with its own challenges because you feel sometimes like a little bit different than everybody else in your field, but that's changing. People like you guys, there's more and more girls going into science and engineering. And so it's becoming less of what feels like a boys club. So yeah, it's getting a lot better, but it's kind of fun being unique. And I think I see, do you guys have the Ada Lace books on your counter? Do I see that on your guys' counter?
Front baby.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
so.
we do.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Our librarian got them for us.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Nice plug. All right, and as the whole month is a testament to, we've got all these amazing women in science and exploration. So yeah, you can check out even more. All right, let's go to Miss Eagle's class. You guys just have to demute your own mic. There you go. come on up.
Do you think you know how many planets are in the whole universe?
Oh my gosh. I don't think that astronomers who study this stuff know exactly how many planets are in the whole universe just yet. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we didn't even know if there were planets outside of our own solar system. But technologies are getting better every single day, and we need students like you who want to search for these planets. They have a name. The planets that are outside of our solar system are called exoplanets. And so we have exoplanet hunters in the astronomy community. There's lots of really, really wonderful scientists who who are astronomers, and their goal is to search for exoplanets. And one of the really interesting challenges that they have is they want to find an exoplanet that is like Earth. Their goal is to find Earth's twin. And that's interesting because if they think that if they can find a planet that's similar to Earth, then maybe, just maybe, there's aliens on that planet too. Because our planet is really unique. Even in our own solar system, our planet is really unique. It's rocky so that we can stand on the surface. It's the right distance away from the sun, so it's not too hot and not too cold and just right to host life like us. Because if it were like 50 degrees hotter or 50 degrees cooler across the world, we may never have existed. Humans may never have been like evolved on Earth if it were too hot or too cold. So the Earth is a very, very unique planet, and astronomers are searching for an exoplanet that might be similar to Earth because that might be a really cool way to, or a really good way to find aliens.
Excellent. All right, we'll go back to Miss Webb's class if you guys have a question now.
What did it feel like to be weightless?
Oh, good question. So what did it feel like to be weightless? The best way that I can describe it is that if you've ever had a dream where you feel like you're flying, I definitely have had those dreams before. It felt exactly like that. It didn't feel like I was floating. It felt like I was flying. And the closest way that you can experience that without actually floating is if you go into a pool and you just kind of like are buoyant in the pool, you kind of float in the water. And that's actually the way that astronauts train to go into space. At NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, they have this huge pool. It's the largest indoor pool in the entire world. And they have the entire International Space Station, or at least most of it, the important parts, underneath that pool, inside that pool. And so all of the astronauts that go on the International Space Station, they first have to learn how to scuba dive. And why do they need to do that? Because they train underwater to go into space. So astronauts will put on what looks like an astronaut suit, but it's like a diving astronaut suit. And they go underwater in the largest indoor pool in the world in Houston, and then do all of their missions over and over and over again that they're going to do in space on the International Space Station underwater. And they do that because if you're underwater, you feel like you're floating. You kind of feel that same effect of like if you like drop something in the water, it'll float for a little bit. So yeah, they train underwater. So it feels kind of like you're flying, but it also feels like you're kind of floating underwater.
Cool. Emily, is there video of you on the Vomit Comet online anywhere?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of videos on Xploration Outer Space. And then like my Twitter and Instagram and Facebook profile pictures of me floating. So if you want to see me, I'm the space gal on the internet. And so you can see me floating on my social media.
Cool. I just wanted the class to have a chance to actually see you in action because you clearly loved it so much.
Oh yeah, it's cool.
All right, before we do another round of questions, just a quick note. We've got some classes watching online on YouTube. You guys can ask questions on the YouTube chat bar, too, on the right side of the screen. So if you want to type in any, I'll pass them along to Emily. Also, a non-serious question, but Harry Potter, what house are you?
Ooh, I think I might be Slytherin.
Oh.
I think I'm cunning and creative, and I'll do whatever it takes to, accomplish what I need to do. I think I'm very resourceful. And so I've always been told that I might be Slytherin.
All right. Let's go back to Miss Padilla's class. If you guys have a second question.
Come on in. Hi. 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 Have you found anything strange?
Ooh, I found lots of strange things. Let's see. That is a really good question because scientists who are trying to answer the questions of how the universe works, a lot of times the way that they do that, it's not, Eureka, I found it. It's, that's weird. Wonder why that's happening. That's usually how we discover these incredible things about the universe. And I don't know. I mean, the strange things I've found are just all the different ways that humans have explored space. Because I'm not, right today, I'm not working as a scientist myself, but I get to interview different scientists and engineers around the world. So basically, I get to find all the strange things that they've discovered and they've learned about in the universe. And that is everything from, you know, how we search for aliens in space to how they designed a rover to work on Mars, how you design a rocket to work in the vacuum of space, and all of these really cool things. So I'm basically learning from all the best scientists and engineers in the world myself.
Outstanding. All right, let's go back to Miss Williams' class. And there you go.
Other than what you told us, what was your favorite place that you went?
The favorite place that I went, wow. I mean, the Vomit Comet's the coolest thing that I've ever done. That's my favorite place that I've gone, just in general. But I think a lot of the places that I've traveled to recently, I was really excited because I got to go to Canada. I went to Quebec to do an episode on the Canadian Space Agency. Because NASA here in the United States, we have NASA, which is our space agency, but different countries around the world have their own space agencies. And I think it's really, really fun to learn about what different people around the world, how they're exploring space. What are their ideas for how to explore the universe and learn about the planets in our solar system and the exoplanets outside of our solar system. And so I love traveling to other countries and understanding that. So I think Canada was really fun, and India, when I went to India, that was really fun too. So those are two of my most recent favorite places I've gone.
Awesome. All right, let's go back to Miss Tompkins' class. You guys have a question?
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Marley, and my question is, do you believe in any conspiracy theories about space?
Ooh, conspiracy theories about space. No, I think that they are generally a conspiracy theory would be something like, I don't think that a conspiracy theory person would say that they don't think that somebody landed on the moon, right? That would be a conspiracy theory. But people say those things, generally they don't have scientific evidence as to why that is. Some people say a conspiracy theory is that the earth is flat, right? Conspiracy theories are generally really silly ideas that are just like really wild to think about. And they could be interesting to think about, like, wow, what if the earth was flat? Wouldn't that be crazy? But scientists for hundreds and hundreds of years have found evidence as to why our earth is round. And so I like to look at all of the evidence that people from around the world have found and understand that, oh, conspiracy theories are just kind of silly because there's not science behind them. And so it's good when you hear something that sounds really, really crazy, really wild, like somebody thinks the earth is flat, you should say, that's an interesting theory. Let's see what evidence there is to support that theory. And you go out into the world and you look to see what scientists have studied on that topic, and you try to look at all of the evidence, and then you can make your own conclusion. But yeah, conspiracy theories usually are just ideas that are not supported by science. So I don't believe in any conspiracy theories, but they're kind of fun to think about sometimes.
Great answer. All right, really quickly, there's someone like right in line behind there. So we'll go back to Ms. Tompkins' class. If you guys have another question, yeah, go right ahead. You're so excited.
I have a question. What is it like traveling and seeing all the new things?
Oh, what is it like traveling? So, when I was in school, I didn't travel too much, but today, every single week, I'm going to a different state and sometimes a different country. And so I spend a lot of time on airplanes. But the good thing is I love traveling. I love seeing people in different cultures. I love eating different types of food. I love seeing things I've never seen before. And so if I had to say that one of my, if I had to pick a hobby that I really like, I love science and I love space, but a hobby that I really, really enjoy is traveling. And I've traveled all around the world to different countries, and it's one of my favorite things to do. And I'm really lucky that my job allows me to travel so much, because sometimes traveling can be expensive and it's nice to have somebody else pay for me to do it. So I do really enjoy it, but sometimes it can be a bit tiring.
Have you been
All right, we'll wrap it up with a final 3. So we'll go first to Miss Webb's class. Do you guys have a second question?
Yep. You sound like you did a lot of cool stuff throughout your life. How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old. And I think that's a really good question, because sometimes when you see people's accomplishments, you're sort of like, should I have been doing all of that stuff? Should I have like traveled as much as she has or done as much as she has? But it's good to keep in mind that if you ever see anybody who has done some really cool stuff in the world, a lot of times it's mostly because they're just a lot older than you and they've had more time to accomplish these things, and they've had more time to learn and get smarter and to travel and to make money and to pay for these things. And so it's a really good question, because it takes a lot of time, I think, to gain experiences and to build up your resume and to meet cool people and to get these different jobs. And so, yeah, so I went to school for 8 years. I was an undergrad for 5 years. I did 2 bachelor's degrees, mechanical and aerospace engineering. And then I went to MIT for grad school and I got 2 masters. And that took me 3 years. So 5 years and then 3 years of school. And I've been doing my TV show for 5 years now. So I've been studying space stuff for a long time. But yeah, still relatively young in my field, and I have a lot more that I'd like to accomplish and more books I'd like to write, more TV shows I'd like to do, but there's time. There's time for that.
Excellent. All right, let's go back to Miss Eagles' class. If you guys have a second question, come on up. Just got to demute your own mic. There you go.
Why did Bill Nye want to hire you?
Ooh, why did Bill Nye want to hire me? I think that's a very good question. And there are lots of very smart people in the world that he could have hired. So I think that that's a question for Bill Nye, not for me. But I do think that I like to get good at talking about science, and being a science storyteller is a very unique set of skills. And when I was in engineering, I like to try to get good at those skills by talking to students who are younger than me. So when I was in college, I would go back to my middle school and to my grade school and tell all of the students in those classes what I was studying in college. They called it outreach. I was doing outreach. And so I got good at talking about science to younger students, to kids. And that can be really, really tough, because if you can't, it takes a long time to understand something in a way that you can explain it really simply. If you can't explain something very simply, you probably don't understand it well enough. And talking to little kids and talking to students about science really taught me how to understand things at a very simple level. And I think I use all of those skills until I was applying for jobs to be a field correspondent with Bill Nye. And that really helped me in my interview and helped me figure out how to be a good field correspondent for him. So I have to ask him. I'd be curious what he would say, but I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Maybe we could, convince Bill Nye to do one of these, bring back the same class that they can ask him personally. Just a thought. That's
a good idea.
Cool. We will go to Miss Pollock's class in 1 second. I don't usually do this many, but you've been standing there in Miss Tompkins' class for so long. So if you have a question, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lena, and before I begin my question, our class was wondering, could maybe Emily come to Anaheim, California?
Oh, I am not close to there, so I think that would be pretty hard for me to do.
But if you have a correspondent mission one day. Okay?
Yes, a correspondent mission one day.
My question is, how did you feel the first time you got to meet some of the people from NASA?
Ooh, it was really cool. What's even neater, I think, is that because I studied science and aerospace for so long, the people that I'm seeing at NASA are oftentimes my friends that I was studying with in school. Because now all of those kids are working at NASA now, or working at SpaceX, or working at some other space company. So what's really fun is if I get to go to NASA and interview my own friends. That's been really cool to highlight them on my show. But it is neat because these people that work at NASA, they are tackling some of the biggest questions of our time. They're tackling, where did we come from? Where did humans come from? Are there aliens out there in the universe? Did aliens, where did humans come from, basically? And then, are we alone? Those are the two big questions that people at NASA are working on, among a number of other really cool questions. But the scientists at NASA are some of the coolest people I've ever met. So it's been really fun to meet a lot of them.
Marvelous. All right, we'll wrap it up with one last question to Miss Pollock's class. If you guys want to come up, demute the mic, go right ahead.
What would you like to build in the future?
What would I like to build in the future? Well, I have a model rocket that's been sitting in the corner of my room for a long time, and I've been meaning to build it. But I live in a big city, and so it's hard to find a place to launch a rocket without getting in trouble. And so that's next on my to-do list. I want to build a model rocket and launch it somewhere in a big field sometime soon. That's next on my to-do list.
Outstanding. I'm sure we could ask questions all day, but we're going to wrap it up there. So what we do at the end of every Hangout is I'm going to demute all the class's microphones. So Miss Webb, Miss Padilla, Miss Tompkins, Miss Williams, everyone. And can you guys join me in saying a big thank you to Emily? Thank you so much, Emily. Just a tad enthusiastic. Awesome. All right, Emily, that was marvelous. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Great questions, you all.
All right, and for all the classes, we've got at least 10 more Hangouts the rest of the month. So if you want to join us for more amazing women in science and technology, wonderful. We look forward to having you. And for now, have a